Welcome to this month's Fire Chief's video message for the month of July 2017. This month I have President Buttle from the International Association of Firefighters Local 1664 with me. Jeff, welcome and thanks for being my guest.
Thanks for having me.
One of the things that people may not be aware of is the uniqueness of our organization, MCFRS, and the bargaining units that are within Montgomery County. 4 bargaining units that is FOP, IFF, McGeo, and then the MCVFRA. Can you tell us about 1664's history and what's the main services and roles that 1664 plays?
Sure. The IFF Local 1664 was actually established back on October 24th of 1966. This past fall we just celebrated our 50th anniversary and had a big gala in honor of that. We used to, when the local was first formed, it represented career firefighters across the county who at the time were actually independent employees with the 19 local fire and rescue departments around the county. Right. That continued into the 1980s, and there was a landmark, kind of like an earmark around 1987. There was a federal lawsuit filed in a federal district court that had to do with the employees not being paid proper overtime compensation. And the federal district court ruled that the firefighters were not exempt from the FLSA because they were working for private independent corporations. That led to the career firefighters and paramedics in Montgomery County becoming county employees, which occurred in 1988. And then moving through the 1990s, we evolved. 1989 was the first collective bargaining agreement or contract that was executed with the county government. In the mid-1990s, via referendum of the Montgomery County voters, we were able to successfully obtain binding arbitration as a charter amendment to allow us the opportunity to be able to resolve disputes with the employer or issues over contracts via the binding arbitration process. When we first started in the 1990s representing employees, we represented master firefighter and below. And then in the early 2000s, we added the lieutenants and captains to the bargaining unit. And probably one of the most significant accomplishments that was actually first tried in the 1960s after the local was formed is to get a single fire chief that was in charge of the Montgomery County Fire and Rescue Service. That bill actually passed in the 1960s but was later overturned by the voters via a referendum question. And then nearly 40 years later, in 2004, there was legislation that was introduced to create a single MCFRS fire chief that had the authority over the fire rescue and service, and we were successful in passing that legislation, and that has been in place for approximately the last 10, 11 years.
And that was, Bill 3603 and the changes that went into effect in the beginning of 2005 as related to that. What is the union's member base? Who's eligible to be a member of the union, and how many active members or members does 1664 have?
Yeah, we roughly, so our membership is roughly 1,500 members. That is broken down between both active and retired members. We have about usually between 11 and 1,200 active members, and then about 300 retired active members that do stay a part of the IFF after it is that they retire. We represent via the bargaining unit, which is legally who we're obligated to represent, captain and below. However, folks that are outside of the bargaining unit, at battalion chief and above, many do still maintain their membership status with the International Association of Firefighters. So we do have them as part of our member base as well.
And what type of services, you talked about how the local was formed. What type of services, when you talk about binding arbitration and the CBA, what other services does 1664 provide to the members?
Yeah, I think our primary responsibilities to the members is working on areas of health and safety. As you know, we have probably one of the most successful and well built out wellness fitness programs between our FROMS section and the pre-hire with the CPAT mentoring. If you look at us in comparison to other departments around the country, we are really top of the class in that area, and our wellness fitness program has saved many lives over the years and continues to catch medical conditions when they're minor issues, when they can be easily fixed and corrective, and we've really been successful with that. We also represent members on working conditions.
Mm-hmm.
Working conditions are very important. We have a 120-some page contract that a lot of those are work rules and working conditions to allow for uniformity and consistency across the board so that all of our members are treated fairly and consistently, something that didn't exist back in the 1960s when our members were split amongst 19 different employers. And then also wages and benefits. All of our wages on our pay scale and benefits, including our health care benefits, our retirement and pension system, and things like our drop program are all stuff that the union negotiates and represents on behalf of our members.
And that's a definite component. As you said, the FROMs and the wellness, that was the IAFF, IFC joint activities that were started in the early 2000s, and we were an early adopter of. Right after it came out, and we've continued a large share of those key points. There's a couple of them that we don't have in place, but the capabilities, as we've talked about, as Jill sat in that chair where you're at, what FROMS does provide as a focused occupational health to the fire profession is quite unique compared to a occupational health that is broad in its focuses. There's no doubt that everything that we harp on, and I'm going to use that word because that's what we truly are trying to do. We're harping on our folks to pay attention to their health and their well-being. What we harp on is focused because of true issues, true incidents, and fellow workers who have had interventions and saves because of those capabilities. So as we said here before, please take those fully to heart and light. How can a member from 1664 improve or be more involved? How can they participate?
Yeah, the easiest way, so the way on the union side of things, the way we have the county broken down is into 8 districts.
Right.
We have 8 district representatives that geographically represent an area of the county. A lot of people confuse that with our battalions. They're different from our battalions. They don't overlap necessarily, where we have a district that might cover more than one battalion. The easiest way to find out what district you're in and who your district representative is to go to our website, and that's www.iafflocal1664.org. There is a link on there for our executive board that lists all of our executive board members, what district they are, and what stations and work sites are included in that district. There are a wealth of opportunities from the international level all the way down to the state and local level for members to be involved.
Right.
And really the best way to become involved is let your district representative know that you have an interest so that when there is an opening or a vacancy for a particular spot, that district rep can bring it to my attention and to the attention of the executive board so that when we're considering appointments to certain committees, we can take that into consideration.
And as you said, some of those committees are joint committees. Some of those committees are internal to the locals level activities.
Correct.
And clearly, the joint committees are a place where we have a joint health and safety committee meeting tomorrow, as an example, where that group is got an integral involvement in our PPE, our safety equipment, and anything that deals with the safety and health of the folks within the department. So what is there also still a shop steward or a station level rep, or is it just best to approach the district rep?
It's best. Some of the district representatives do have individuals at the stations that will help them out and assist.
Okay.
But really the best way for the individual member to contact the union for anything that they need or any questions they might have is through the district representative, so they can ensure that it gets directed to the right person within our internal organization to make sure that they get an answer back.
Okay. And as some may know, but probably more don't know, we're meeting, collectively in different venues 3 or 4 times a month. Yourself or the vice presidents are involved in the monthly transfer meetings. We have face-to-face meetings, traditionally 3 times a month with my staff, admin services, and yourself and the VPs. So there's a lot of interactions between both of our organizations to do exactly what our focus is, manage and provide the infrastructure to support, the service providers. So I do appreciate what Pat, TJ, all the members of the executive board do, as well as and yourself. So we work together on issues to collaborate as well as to improve the organization. So truly do appreciate that. Now, anything else to say about 1664 before you bring the question forward that you had for me?
Yeah, just if anybody's interested in becoming more involved in the union, please contact your district representative. We have meetings once a month. Those are published on the union website as well. Be active, be involved, let your voice be heard, your opinion counts. One of the biggest benefits of all the joint labor management committee and collaboration and the joint meetings that we have is making sure that all of the all perspectives are heard and everybody has a seat at the table. We do always take everybody's comments and input that they send up to us seriously and make sure that those thoughts are provided. So if you want to become more involved or have an interest, please by all means do so.
Excellent. So you have a question. You were talking about how things are in the future. Is that your question? Yeah,
we have certainly a master plan that's built out for the next couple of years. I'm not sure everybody's completely familiar with the master plan that ultimately goes to council for approval. Mm-hmm. But recently there was a reorganization of some of the EMS units, changing those from ALS to BLS, which resulted in some relocation of some of our master firefighter paramedic positions to other positions. But can you speak a little bit, because we've got that question a lot, where that's a reorganization within this fiscal year, but how that relates to the overall build out of the master plan, which is built out over multiple fiscal years moving forward.
Right. So the master plan prior to the current edition was a 10-year plan. 10 years is impractical. It's way too long to structure something or to be able to forecast out in the environment we work with. We adjusted that to be more in sync with the county CIP or capital improvement plan cycle, which is on traditionally a 5 and 6 year cycle. So the master plan, which went into effect just over a year ago now, carries us for the beginning of the next CIP cycle, and then we'll be in full sync with the CIP. So part of that was the ALS redeployment. And as you said, on June 18th, we did the first phase of medic unit transition to BLS units and implemented the second full-time ALS chase car at Rescue 1. So each one of those, Medic 704, Medic 730, Medic 735, transitioned to a BLS cot, as well as Medic 741. That resulted in that move of the master firefighter paramedic position. As we move through the phases there, we will get to the other units at 31, 29, and then 8, 3, 25, 12, 15. And as we've talked in some of the other officers' meetings, some of those transitions, the medic will come off the transport unit at that station and go into a chase car at that station. That master medic goes from M2 to basically K2 and is in the car in the station. But the places where I think it was 7 places, the places where we go from a medic cot to an ambulance cot, those ALS master medic positions are no longer needed because there's not going to be a chase car there. And as we announced through attrition and natural master firefighter promotion and process, those positions will be absorbed into the master firefighter complement pool. The question that you have, and as you phrased it, is when. How and when will that be synchronized out, or when will we get through a full implementation of that? We're finishing the FY18 implementations, and we just started the FY19 budget cycle. Now the question is, FY19 we got the addition of a chase car at Aspen Hill as it's planned. What will we get in the next FY cycle? Not quite sure. It would be my objective to concentrate where we had did our chase car test in the Gaithersburg and Rockville area as our next sequence. And then the year after, likely aim for what I refer to as the east side, the Battalion 1 transition. So maybe 23 and then Station 1, 12 and 15. So I think that's 2 years away before we see that final transition of both Medic 31 and 29, as an example, on the north end, switching to BLS COTS, and those master positions transitioning to chase cars throughout the county. That's with the current appetite for position enhancements. And as we will see, as we see with our 71 or 72,000 people we transport to the hospital each year, the ability to disconnect or disengage that ALS provider from the cot only improves or greatly improves that person's availability for a ALS call, because he or she is no longer transporting 30 to 50 or more percent of their patients being BLS level patients. So it's 2 to 3 years. When we look at the priorities in the strategic plan, now the strategic plan is much more focused and is revised on an annual cycle. Master plan is set and it's set for its term. The strategic plan was just released right before July 1st. That talks about the ALS implementation as our next priority, and then EMS capacity. EMS capacity identifying both flex units as well as more more full-time units. We started with the transition with a unit at Station 6. Station 19 and 7 would be the next places I would see another EMS unit coming. Traditionally, those being full-time 24/7 units. Those that were with us, it's back in almost over a decade ago now when we had the flex units, understood that those were 12-hour a day units, Gaithersburg, Aspen Hill, as well as Rockville, and I clearly see those coming back and being a practical use within our organization. Then, fourth person staffing. 4-person staffing's on the aerials as the priority. And when someone gets into the master plan and reads the master plan, it will identify that we've prioritized TDAs in the rescue squad before the towers, utilizing the need for the additional staffing with the rescue nature of the extrication trucks, as if we're going to take basically the 15 aerials and prioritize which ones get additional staffing in some level of sequence, we're going to do it with the TDA rescue trucks first, and then the towers after that. So that's written in the master plan, and it definitely is our roadmap moving forward. But again, I think it'll be 2 or 3 budget cycles before we finish the ALS redeployment, and then start into the EMS capacity. And as the strategic plan, master plan talk about, the EMS capacity includes more EMS supervisors. Would desire greatly to have 1 EMS supervisor per battalion to be able to expand the capacity there, share the workload, as well as to provide an additional ability for those folks in the EMS cars to support the paramedics, both in training and oversight and response activities. So 2 to 3 years for ALS, then a year or so for the EMS capacity, and then kicking into 4th person staffing. So great question. Hope that helps. Anybody's invited to ask me to stop by station for a lineup or meeting, and pick my brain or ask the questions about what's written through the master plan and strategic plan.
Adding on to that, while we're talking about the expansion of services and the build out of programs, what about new fire stations coming online in the future?
So today is Wednesday, heard yesterday that they think 25's renovation is going to start in September. It's all in permits. So Clarksburg is waiting on sewer. So 35's full real station is waiting on sewer to be brought up 355 in general terms. And then we were in site selection for Montgomery Village, or Station 39, the back of the village. We were in site selection for that. We had a meeting about 3 weeks ago now with some folks from the White Oak Science Gateway, or the Tech Road expansion, and talking about via White Oak as it's identified. and how that growth area is going to drive the need for what's identified in the master plan of Station 37 to be added. But I said, once we have a site, we're talking about 4 years from the time we have a site to the time we can see a station completed. So we have a site for Clarksburg, we just need sewer to get there. Plans are already done for the structure. Getting a site for Montgomery Village is the next big hurdle to getting a facility to put a station in the back of the village and begin to improve our response times back there. After Montgomery Village, the next priority is Shady Grove. Shady Grove and 355 as a general area of location. So all that's pretty well laid out in the master plan, specifically laid out in the strategic plan.
Okay, well, I would certainly encourage anybody, as you have offered, if they'd like a more detailed conversation on this or have specific questions, to take you up on your invitation to stop by their lineup or for lunch one day or whenever you may have time.
Yep.
I think that's a good opportunity to talk with the fire chief, who's the boss, to get the information straight from you versus what sometimes can be out there in the rumor mill.
And for the places nearby, some of those stations, it's so much more understanding and visually able to relate to it when you see the maps, when you see the coverage maps of what we have today and the anticipated growth maps and the 4,000 more residents anticipated in this community and this time frame, and what that's going to mean for call load, and why today we may not say that we need something in this location, but why we definitely need it what will be 8 years from now or 9 years from now, and why we're struggling today to pick a site for something that will be a reality in 6, 7, 8 or so years. So yep, ask me to come down and break bread and definitely be able to answer questions.
Okay.
People ask me, well, what's the latest, Chief? And my answer is, I'm not going to open my mouth and just tell you the latest. I'll answer all your questions you got. If I get a question I can't answer, I'm going to tell you, sorry, Cap, I can't get into that. But most questions are totally able to be responded to and provide information on, and I appreciate it. So we were talking before the camera started is IRP. IRP, we're now almost the second week into that, the incident response policy, and all in all, I think everyone's taken that almost 60 days plus to digest it and intake it and understand it. There's going to be a couple hiccups, people using our old terminology, but the IRP rollout seemed pretty good. Have you heard any reactions?
From my perspective, I think the 60-day period was a good opportunity for people to become familiar with the new IRP, and I think for the most part, from my perspective, the things that I'm hearing back on feedback is that they're going very well.
And we did see very welcome at that. We did see a spike towards the end of June in the blog hits and reads, which is the pure intent of having those FAQs on the blog as well as all the videos and PowerPoints on the training site to be able to have people go to one consolidated area. And when a question came up, like a question that's about Metro SOPs, did the Metro SOP change because of the IRP? No, it didn't. The Metro SOP is still intact as it is because it's not a component of the IRP. So specifically, the third due engine on a Metro is still the RIC unit. And as we phase in more parts of IRP, it may be our goal to roll that into the IRP and align that with the IRP. One of the things that we did in collaboration that's ongoing and it's through your website is the red shirts.
Yes.
Red Shirt Fridays, and I really appreciate the locals' interest in that, making what was an original proposal for something a little bit different than that, and how we work together to adjust it, to remember everyone deployed or red, and how that allows us, because we are in a very unique situation here geographically with Navy Med, the nation's capital, and all of our military headquarters folks, to be able to honor those deployed as well as the veterans, and I think that shirt with some of its camouflage and the red nature is very fitting and telling of that. So I appreciate the effort that the union did, and look forward to seeing those out there on Fridays.
Yeah, well, we appreciate your support in allowing us to be able to wear the shirts on Friday. Anybody who's interested in buying or purchasing a red shirt to wear on Fridays, they're available right now on our locals website, and we will keep those shirts available for purchase on an ongoing basis, so people can replace them in the future should they have the need to.
Excellent. And as we talk about T-shirts, one of the things, this is July, and this is the dog days of summer. The forecast, I believe, for Thursday is going to be the air temperature of possibly 100 degrees. There is so many impacts that does, as you well know, on our environment. As I've said here before, you know, this cup of water, ability to come to work hydrated and keep that body ready for the environment that we're working in is so critical. You know, the hydration chart, the ability to say that you're taking the right fluids in and taking them in sufficiently, because you know, 30 to 40 minutes of firefighter physical exertion equates to almost 2 liters of, you know, lost fluids in the body, and someone who's starting off with a low level is going to clearly be impacted by that level of exertion. So I want to make sure everyone knows, get it ready, be ready, and we understand the impact that this heat does on us. And it's definitely an industry challenge that we deal with around here.
Yeah, I would say that jointly we both would agree that the health and safety of our firefighters when they're working out there in the field, particularly during the summertime, when the heat conditions are as such that you really need to focus on hydration and come to work prepared.
Yep.
But the health and safety is always a high priority of both labor and management jointly.
Yep. So as everyone, so thank you, Jeff, for joining me today, talking about the history of 1664 and the IAFF locals' involvement as a integral part of MCFRS. And again, thank you for all that you, the executive board, and members of your staff do, because it is a collaborative effort. So thank you.
Okay, appreciate you having me.
So everyone, it is hot. It is hazy, hot, and humid out there. We call it the 90-90-90s, you know, 90 degrees, 90% humidity, and it is just flat out hot. Come to work ready, have the right equipment, make sure you have water, make sure you have rehydration capabilities, and understand to moderate that work activities. We got a lot of recruits out there, and as a lineup was talking today, we're going to work about splinting and EMS care this afternoon when we can be back inside in the air conditioning. Let's get out there this morning and do our attack pumper operations and do our hose drills. You know, manage that information and manage those activities based around the weather, but always be ready for the event. Be ready, take care, stay hydrated. Till next month, thank you.